Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Hypersonic 55, and I'm going to tell you my thoughts on Toy Story 3. I happened to see the film last night, and I thought it was great, so I thought I just wanted to talk about it. Now, let's think back to Toy Story 1. Back in 1995, it changed not only the way in which we look at animated films, but it also made cinematic history too. It was the first feature film to be made with CGI, computer generated imagery for those who don't know. Basically, it's 3D computer animation, and it covered one of the most interesting subjects in my opinion. What happens to toys when the owners aren't playing with them? You see toys come to life and they happen to have their own agendas, they happen to interact with each other, talk about their owners, their surroundings, and what they're going to do, how they're going to plan things. It was just really good. When I first saw it as a kid, I was astonished. It was instantly relatable as I was a kid who loved playing toys as well. And to see them come to life when Andy wasn't around and have these adventures, I thought it was just incredible. Pixar truly made something magical with that, and I'm glad they decided to follow up with Toy Story 2 in 1999. Now, Toy Story 2 was going to be a direct-to-video sequel, but along the line they decided to turn it into a theatrical movie. Toy Story 2 happens to be one of my favourite sequels ever. It was a sequel with a greater depth of story, more characters, full of originality and charm, and more locations, and a greater sense of urgency to rescue friends in distress. And the part of the story that dealt with Jesse's past always touching my heart all the time. And I feel in many ways that this film was superior to the original in the sense that it went further on to explain how toys feel about their owners and what their futures hold and how they have to stay together as long as possible. So now, 15 years later after the first film and 11 years after the second, we have the third film in the series. And, I have to admit, I know that Pixar are masters when it comes to animation, but the third part in the trilogy can never be done right in most cases, especially in recent years, unless it's got the right amount of time and attention put into it. But thankfully, I'm glad to report that my doubts about the film were unnecessary, as Toy Story 3 just happens to be one of the best films I've ever seen. Period. Now, everybody knows the plot of the film, but I will give a brief overview. Basically, Andy's 17 and he's going to college and he's deciding what to do with his toys. The toys haven't been played with in years and are just hoping to be touched by Andy, but when it's finally decided that they're not going to be played with, and Woody is chosen to be taken to college and the other is going to be put in the attic. However, through the mistake of Andy's mum, they almost get thrown out into the trash, but when they happen to know that there are toys being donated to a daycare center, the toys happen to jump at the chance of being played with again, so that they jump into that box. Woody tries to save them and get them back to Andy, but goes along for the ride, and all the gang are taken to the daycare center. And while it starts out to be great at first, there happens to be an undertone of bad things that happen to come their way. And things don't seem to turn out all too well for them, so the group band together to go about and escape and find their way back to Andy. That's more or less the gist of it. Now, the great thing about Toy Story, in my opinion, is it puts you right back in the same place that you were when you was watching the films years ago. You get the feelings of nostalgia as soon as the movie starts. The scenes, the music, the characters, it feels like you never left the world that Toy Story created in the first two films. Everyone's present and everyone feels good. It's like time hasn't affected them at all. Everything looks right, sounds right, and it just feels like reliving your past, except in the present. Woody is still the optimistic leader, Buzz is still Woody's best friend and biggest supporter, and everyone else feels right, from Jesse, the Potato Heads, Ham, Rex, Slinky. Everyone's there. Everyone's doing great. It's just wonderful. I have to say that Toy Story happens to be one of the most emotive films I've ever seen in recent history. The film really tackles a subject matter that Stinky Pete slightly covered in the last film about toys when they reach the end of their play cycle with their owners and what happens to them after that point. We see that some end up in daycare, some are thrown away, or some are given to new children. I find the film incredible in the way in which it tackles the story. The new characters happen to have great scenes and interesting stories to tell, and how they interact with each other and the original cast is fantastic. And let's talk about the film visually. Visually, I think the film is remarkable. After watching the first film and seeing how they look, this film just happens to have a great amount of detail. And seeing recent Pixar films like WALL-E and Up, and seeing how much detail there is in there, seeing how Toy Story 3 happens to get the treatment that they got, detail is just incredible to me. Seeing the cast go through that level of transformation, looking as good as they did in 1995, and now how amazing they look in 2010 is just incredible. The level of detail in the character models is just amazing. Right up close, you can see the detail in the clothes and the stitching, the reflections. Everything is so crisp and shiny, and the different locations help go about and show the different tonal and shading aspects that has gone in to go about and make what this world look like. Seeing different times of day, everything just looked great. The toys, the human characters and locations have never looked so realistic and amazing. I can't help but say amazing because it truly is. It's just unnaturally beautiful. The film happens to cover the whole concept of toys after they've been used up and seeing what happens after them. It's just a great thing to witness in this film. It's never really been looked into in any other film, and it's really great how Pixar have been able to go about and capture the level of happiness, sadness, and all other emotions that come with these experiences. This is a film that is really relatable, mainly to older audiences. As teenagers and adults, we know what it was like to get rid of our toys. Some of us may not have cared, some of us may have had hard times giving it up, and some of us may have given our toys to younger brothers or sisters or even our children. And I think it's really something for the adults to go about and look at as well as the children. The children can get lost in the magic of the animation and the characters and the subject matter itself. Now, as I said before, Toy Story 3 is really dark in nature, and there are some actual scenes that are actually really, really scary. There was actually a girl that was sitting near me in the same row as me that actually wanted to get up and leave the film. She kept on saying to her mum, "Oh, this is actually too scary. Mummy, this is actually really scary. I don't want to watch this anymore. Can we leave? This is really scary. I can't watch this anymore." And I was like, wow. Toy Story 3 is really going the extra mile to show the greatest adventure possible. And it does a fantastic job of getting the right amount of action, story, characters and everything all in the right spots. But overall, I think it really is a subject matter with the story that is so beautiful and well told, and the scenes that really hit home. It really will touch your heart, and yes, it will make you cry. The subject matter is covered with such compassion and care that you'll have to feel for the toys. You get attached to them, and you want to see what happens to them. The film is really dark in nature, and it has the greatest level of emotion that the series has to offer so far. I would say it is one of the most emotive animated films I've ever seen in existence, and one of the best films I've ever seen ever. No animated film has gone about and gone this deeply into a subject matter that no one really cared about, or no one really paid attention to, with such devotion. And Pixar are just doing it. They're incredible. Overall, I thought the film was great. You don't really expect the film about toys and what happens to them after they're used up to be this good, but it is. It's just fantastic. Looking into a mirror of your past and revisiting old memories, it shows you what you enjoyed in life and how these memories, whether they be physical or otherwise, stay with you regardless of how old you are. Pixar have proved once again that a sequel can be as good or even better than a predecessor when the right amount of time, dedication and hard work is put into it. Pixar have made sequels better than real life movies, and that's saying something. Film to anyone that wants to see a good film this year. This film is truly amazing and I love it to death, and I think it's my favourite film of this year. Toy Story 3 is probably the first film in a long time that I've come out of the cinema with a true smile on my face. I was just satisfied. So yeah, I highly recommend Toy Story. I couldn't recommend it enough. I'm going to watch it again and again and again until it leaves the cinema. I haven't watched it in 3D, I watched the 2D showing, but it's still just as good. The visuals are still incredible, the story is incredible. Don't be afraid to cry, because it is really a deep and involving story. So yeah, go watch it, definitely. Ultimate satisfaction, thy name is Toy Story 3. This has been Hypersonic 55. Hope you enjoyed this, I hope you found it enlightening, and hopefully I've convinced you to go about and watch the film. Until then, this is me signing out.